Hello and welcome to Patriot Come Lately Talk Radio. This is Stefan, your host, British by birth, American by choice. The Founding Fathers crafted some remarkable documents that led to the creation of a great country founded on liberty and self-reliance. I have lived in the Euro-socialist nightmare, and I'm doing what I can to return this country to the vision that the Founding Fathers gave us. We need to strive to rebuild that shining city on the hill, for without us, the world has nowhere to turn for freedom. For the next hour, I will be presenting news, views, and guests that help keep the true spirit of America alive. And good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Whenever, wherever you're listening to this show, this is Stefan, your Patriot Come Lately, British by birth, American by choice, welcoming you to episode 273 of Patriot Come Lately Talk Radio, the show where you hear some news and views on the political scene here in America with a slightly different voice. And we've got a lot to get to this week. The show is yet again coming to you from Southwest Florida, the Sunshine State. But not very much about the Sunshine State today. We've got a lot of things going on in the world, and most of them happening up in DC. So I'm going to say time to get on with those. If anybody is out there listening to the show live, don't forget, join us in the chat room. Click on the little speech button in your little Spreaker box there, and that will take you to the chat room where people like Paul and perhaps shortly Rex join. Number of regular listeners join the group. They have lots of interesting discussions while I'm rabbiting on here, and in the breaks I try and join in as well. For those of you that are not listening live, always a reminder here, if you're listening to either the recordings or one of the rebroadcasts on Red State Talk Radio or the 405 radio over there on the left coast, if you're listening to so if you're not listening live, obviously you can't participate in the chat room, so email me. Send me an email at stefan@patriotcomelately.us or go to the website www.patriotcomelately.us. And there is a contact form there. Click on the link to the contact form, send me a message, and I will answer your questions or handle your comments in a future show, as well as getting back to you directly. Actually, today I did get an invitation from someone who would like to be interviewed on the show. I haven't been doing guests a lot recently because I can't do them live, but it sounds like an interesting person, so I may get in contact with them and see about bringing them on. It's someone who has his own radio show, but he seems to have some interesting ideas. Anyway, folks, as I said, a lot to get to this week, so I'm going to start off immediately with what I like to call my weekly summary, where I take some topics from the news and give my thoughts, my ideas on that. So the weekly summary. And I'm going to start, first of all, Second Amendment. Yes, the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. Many of you will probably know about a couple of companies that have sprung up using the capabilities of the internet and smartphones, called Uber and Lyft. And these are what they call ride-sharing companies. To be honest, I think if you look at them with an honest eye, they are a form of taxi service, but couched in such a way that they kind of weave around the taxi regulations. Some cities have tried to ban them and do have regulations in place. I think New York is one place that's they did finally get the ability to work there, but they had to become a lot more like a taxi service. So originally, Uber was the first one, and if you don't know about it, it was set up that anybody could basically sign up to be an Uber driver, and using the smartphone, GPS on the smartphone, a passenger could call for a ride, say where they're going. Uber would find out where the nearest drivers are. Drivers would then be offered, and if whoever took the ride would then go pick up the passenger, take them to their destination. Uber would calculate how long it took in terms of distance, but also in terms of time, calculate the cost. They had all sorts of clever things that in rush hours, basically the cost per mile went up. This was to encourage more people to become Uber drivers and earn the money. And in less busy times, the costs for the passengers went down. So capitalism working at its very best. Excuse me a moment. So you think capitalism working at its very best? It sounds good. Laissez-faire, hands off, just act as an intermediary. And this was the argument that they used. Well, in California, they got taken to court by a driver who said, well, no, I'm actually working for you. And the California Court of Appeals or Supreme Court, one of the two, but anyway, after being through a couple of courts, they basically agreed with the driver and said, yes, Uber, you are treating your people as employees, and therefore you have to give them benefits, etc., a number of things. Because it turns out that Uber was turning out to control more and more. Well, so why am I talking about this? Well, in the past, I was very pro-Uber. I thought, yeah, this is great. I mean, this is really capitalism at its best. They're taking this new capability, the internet, smartphones with GPS, and using that to give a better service than taxis do. And I mean, the service was great. When you called for a ride, they would tell you where your driver was coming from. If there were multiple ones, you could even choose which one you wanted, and they had ratings, so you could see, did you want the 4 or the 5-star driver, or did you want to take a risk with the 2-star driver that was very close by? All your own decision. I mean, really, much better service than anything you get with the taxi. However, recently, it turns out that Uber decided that they did not want and that kind of got me thinking. Now, apparently this happened because there was some fight or riot or something going on somewhere. An Uber driver happened to be passing by, had his weapon with him, and got out and basically broke up the fight, stopped the fight going on, protected someone from perhaps being killed, and, was hailed as a hero. But, of course, Uber looked at this. Uber's based, I think, the headquarters in California. Yes, guess what? Nuts and fruits, right? Yep. It's the left coast, and they decided they didn't like the fact that people were carrying guns. Well, I have to say, I would say the same for taxi drivers. If you're driving around, you've got money in your car, especially when it's late at night, you've got all sorts of strange types out there. I would like some self-protection in my vehicle. And don't forget, a lot of these cars, it's called ride-sharing, so it's basically private people using their own car. These are not taxis, which might have some kind of glass division between where the passenger is and where the driver is. These are just normal cars. So while that's nice when you get picked up, you get a lot of time get a nice car, they're clean. I wouldn't be at all surprised, and I wouldn't mind. But then again, I'm a Second Amendment advocate. I wouldn't mind if I knew that the driver had a gun, because it's obviously for his protection. But anyway, Uber has decided to jump in on this, and as they get more and more successful, they want to control more and more. And so one of the things that they've decided is that they have, as now put into their policy, that they do not accept rides from people who are carrying a weapon, especially a concealed or an unconcealed weapon in those states where it can be unconcealed. But basically, they do not want those people in the car. And if you are caught riding and you have a weapon, and for whatever reason you might it becomes known, then they reserve the right to basically throw you out of their system. So guess what, folks? I didn't wait for them to find me carrying a gun in one of their cars, and most of the time when I use Uber, I'm on the road, and as you know, TSA has this funny thing about taking guns on airplanes, so I don't normally have a gun with me when I'm on the road. But I am a concealed carry permit holder, and therefore I feel discriminated against. In actual fact, I started thinking about it, and so they claim to have this ride-sharing service. They claim to be more, they said that, and their argument in the California court was that they're not actually a company that provides rides. They act as a technology service which provides the computer and the servers and the software which allows people basically to sell their time, their cars to use. So that was their argument. But I think now with this thing where they've kind of jumped in and introduced this political element, well, let's think about it. Aren't they really a public service? Aren't they actually discriminating against people who are carrying out a constitutionally protected activity, right? Bearing arms is a constitutionally protected activity. So what makes them in that respect different to the bakers who refuse to bake cakes for gay weddings, right? You're not doing anything illegal by carrying, so what makes them different? What allows them to discriminate against you? So, I mean, we know what the truth is there. It's just that the Liberals don't like guns, so they're not going to stand up for that, but they will stand up for gay weddings. But think about it, folks. Could be interesting if somebody got caught with a gun in their car, got thrown out by Uber, and then they took Uber to court. Or Lyft. Lyft is the other competitor, not as big as Uber, but they also have a similar rule in place. Now, theirs apparently has been in place for a long time. Uber just recently made the switch, and it was announced, whatever. Yeah, it would make an interesting court case, especially because Uber can't claim First Amendment religious rights, which, you know, basically a baker could. Now, of course, we know with the SCOTUS decision that recently came down, there's going to be a lot of muddying of the water there, and I think there will be a number of cases where it's going to be, well, does the 14th Amendment trump the First Amendment, vice versa? We'll see. But for the Uber one, no, there's no First Amendment right there. In some ways you could argue and say, well, they're a private company, they can do what they want, but it's getting to the point there. That's what you can say about the bakers as well, and because they're providing a service to the public, the argument is they have to do it for anybody. And so I sort of go, well, what's the difference between that and between someone who's carrying a weapon? Does that make me any different? Does that make me any more dangerous in any way? As a concealed carry, a weapon holder of a CCW license, that's something that I've gone through background checks to show that I'm a safe person, that that I know how to use my weapon. Why would that make me more dangerous? So anyway, interesting thoughts there. Be nice to see if it does ever get to court. This could be a lot of fun. However, I see the clock has been going much quicker than I expected. I thought this was going to be a short thing, but it's took a little longer to talk about this. But I think there's some, there are some constitutional issues here which need talking about. But it is time for our first commercial break. So, folks, I will hop off for a couple of minutes, listen to the commercials. But before I do, I think I said hi to Paul, and we have Debbie has joined us in the chat room. New listener, or at least a new listener in the chat room. Welcome, Debbie. Nice to see you there. Thanks for coming. And I will be right back after these messages.
You can lose 10, 20, 30 pounds or more with Maximum Slim's first ever rapid weight loss guarantee. Today, you get Maximum Slim, an advanced fat and carb blocker, absolutely risk-free. The all-natural ingredients in Maximum Slim are a powerful weight loss combination. The Maximum Slim formula turns your body into a fat-burning furnace that supercharges your weight loss. Advanced fat and carb blocker stops the breakdown of sugar so your body doesn't store it as fat. Today, you'll get both of these products absolutely risk-free with no obligation. Only pay shipping. There are no expensive meal plans or exhausting DVDs. Just take Maximum Slim twice a day. It's fast, simple, and now it's guaranteed. Look, you can start losing weight today or not. Go back to your high school days and wear your favorite jeans again. Guaranteed. Call now and get both weight loss formulas free. Call 800-451-0228. 800-451-0228. That's 800-451-0228.
Doc, you gotta give it to me straight.
All right.
'Cause I'm dying here. I mean, take a look at this letter from the IRS.
Oh, my.
This is killing me, Doc. I tell you, it's killing me.
Cheer up, my friend.
Huh?
The tax doctor is here. My diagnosis tells me that you're going to be just fine.
Really?
The tax doctor will not rest until we find you the best possible tax settlement.
Really, Doc?
Guaranteed.
If the IRS claims you owe them $10,000 or more in business or personal back taxes, call a tax doctor right now. We could save you up to 75% if you qualify. Guaranteed or you pay nothing. Call right now for free details.
800-917-8546. 800-917-8546. 800-917-8546. That's 800-917-8546.
This is Patriot Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patriotcomelately.us. And thanks for sticking with me through the break, folks. Just a little reminder here, if you like the show, please tell your friends, families, acquaintances. We need to get these messages out. I try to do this show as an education and spread some of the things that I feel will impact the political situation. I was very despondent this week because of I think a lot of bad things have happened based on the SCOTUS decisions, and it will take a while for the country to recover, but I'm always an optimist, and I think the country can. It won't be easy, but I hope it can, and the first step obviously is going to be to vote a really conservative president, not necessarily a social conservative. I think that's not necessarily the most important part, but I want someone who is fiscally conservative and who obeys the Constitution. The social part, I tend to lean more libertarian, so I'm a bit in the middle there, and I'll stand up for that. I'll be honest about it. That's less important to me because right now we need to improve the economy and we want someone who follows the law. But anyway, but let's go on to the next piece in the comments of the weekly summary. And I don't know if you remember, but there was a Brit over here who appeared on a few TV programs, including taking over from Larry King, called Piers Morgan, who, as far as I was concerned, is a twerp, as we say back in the UK. And I always used to say, he always embarrasses me, the fact that he was British, and some of the things he said. He was very anti-gun, still is, and a bit of a nutcase as far as I'm concerned. However, somebody put some numbers together, took them from the FBI crime statistics, which you can look up for yourself at www.fbi.gov, and they compared some statistics from the UK to statistics in the US. So let's look at the UK. The UK has a total gun ban. It is virtually impossible to own a gun, even for hunting, even for sport. Now, of course, the UK was always one where they love hunting their pheasants and quail and things on the moors, but it's very difficult to get a gun, and all sorts of regulations about how it's kept, locked up, ammunition, all sorts of things. So it's not very easy. So basically there is an almost total gun ban in the UK. In the USA, we're actually number one in the world for gun ownership. About 88 guns per 100 people. So that's almost one gun per person. That's a lot of guns. However, so let's go back to the UK. Well, what about violent crimes? Where is the UK in that? Actually, the UK is number one in the world for violent crimes. About 2,000 per 100,000 people. The US, they're not even in the top 10 for violent crimes. It's only 466 per 100,000 people. So that's roughly a quarter of what it is in the UK. UK has the second highest overall crime rate, not just violent crime, but all sorts of crimes in the European Union. If we look at the world in large and look at the USA side, what about gun murders? Well, the US is number 28 in the world for gun murders, and that's only just under 3 per 100,000 people. And finally, total crimes in the UK, which indicates why they're number one for violent crimes and second highest overall crime in the European Union, but the total crimes work out at 10,000 per 100,000 people. That's a hell of a high percentage. In the US, it's only about 4,000 per 100,000 people. So again, we're talking there about, it's a bit higher than 25%, more like 40% of what it is in the UK on a relative basis. But anyway, so as this blogger said, Piers Morgan, you may want to check up these statistics before you start spouting off on your strange things about being anti-gun and how good Britain is with those sort of things. Some good news. I like bringing good news, folks. Some good news here. This is a judge that had a case brought before him in New Jersey, in the Matawan Aberdeen School District, where a high school student filed suit against the school district on the basis that hearing the Pledge of Allegiance in class violated his rights as an atheist. Violated his rights, isn't it? So we've got this thing here again. I mean, I just get so sick with this. Everybody is just so touchy. You say anything that they don't like, and they are immediately offended. Instead of sort of saying, okay, well, you've got your opinion, I don't agree with you, F you, they get offended, they sue. It's the same with flags. Let's have a look at let's face it, the Confederate flag thing. Yes, it is associated with slavery in some ways, but it never flew over a slave ship. And actually, the flag they're all worried about is the battle flag. So the fact that the South wanted to secede from the Union, yes, it had to do with slavery because they wanted to keep the slavery, but that's all well behind us. And let's face it, a lot of the people that wanted that secession were at the time were actually basically what we would call Democrats today, but they forget about that. Anyway, so this judge had a case brought before him, right, that this unidentified high school student felt that hearing the Pledge of Allegiance, because it contains the phrase in there, under God. Well, the judge dismissed the case in February. This is a while back, but his ruling was only just published, and it's a great ruling, to be honest. This is what he said: protecting students from viewpoints and ideas that may offend or upset them is not and never has been the role of public schools in America. And he didn't stop there. He pointed out how the phrase under God, which is what specifically was the objection that the student had, appears everywhere in America, right? You can't take that out of the national consciousness, the judge said. Think about the words, "In God we trust," on every coin in the land. The words, "So help me God," from every presidential oath, and most oaths that you take in court now, unless you choose and say, "I'm not an atheist," but most people will do that. Right? Or even the prayer that opens every congressional session of legislative business since 1787. Furthermore, the judge said, even the New Jersey state constitution references God, meaning that the very constitution on which the student sought redress for perceived atheistic marginalization could itself be deemed unconstitutional. How can a constitution be deemed unconstitutional? And the judge, rightly so, described that notion as absurd. So the American Humanist Association, one of the associations going out there trying to eradicate any kind of religion anywhere in the public environment, they claim that having children recite the Pledge of Allegiance is discriminatory and makes atheists feel like second-class citizens. The judge explained the students have every right to skip the pledge. If they don't want to say it, they don't have to. If they want to leave out under God, they can do that. What they do not have the right to do is to stop other students, other people from reciting, which I think was a great judgment by the judge. Next topic. Have we finally found the smoking gun? Apparently, Fox News comes forward with proof that Hillary committed treason in Benghazi. Well, for all those liberals that call Fox News faux news, this is obviously something that they dreamed up or manufactured. But federal court documents that Fox News recently obtained show that Hillary Clinton, while Secretary of State, supported a covert exchange of weapons to the rebels in Libya. The same group was involved that subsequently attacked the American diplomatic compound in Benghazi. So technically, Hillary was giving weapons, aid, and support to the enemy. What is the definition of treason? Giving aid and support to the enemy. Well, do you think she'll ever get called on that? I wonder. I hope it comes up in the debates if she makes it through the primary. Bernie Sanders is climbing quickly, still not all that strong yet against Hillary, but it's still a number of months. You never know what could happen here. Anyway, folks, it's the bottom of the hour already. Time flies when you're having fun. So we are going to take yet another commercial break. And just a reminder to my listeners, if you have need of any of these services, please use the 800 numbers in the commercials, because each time you do, a certain amount of money comes my way, helps support the show.
Patriot come lately. British by birth. American by choice. Just like the Founding Fathers. The voice of the conservative resistance.
Every day, millions of Americans grow more concerned about the future of our great nation. The truth is, over the last century, a small but powerful collectivist movement known as progressivism has debased our politics, our culture, and our currency. We're just a small step from falling into 1,000 years of darkness, as Ronald Reagan warned. Friend, this is Pat Boone with an important free offer on a hot new book called The Great Withdrawal by Craig Smith and Lowell Ponte. This new book explains how we, the people, can end this fatal detour into big government and get back on the path of faith and freedom charted by our founders. Call now for a free copy of the hot new book called The Great Withdrawal.
Call now for your free copy. 800-978-3901. 800-978-3901. 800-978-3901. That's 800-978-3901.
Owe $10,000 or more to the IRS that you can't pay? Call now for immediate help. At the Tax Relief Line, we help people just like you. If you take on the IRS alone, you could be facing levies, liens, even wage garnishments, personal or business tax issues. If you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS, call now and see if you can pay less. They can freeze your bank accounts, even garnish your wages. Call the Tax Relief Line now for immediate help. Our expert team of tax professionals will negotiate your tax problem and deal with the IRS for you. If the IRS is threatening you with levies, wage garnishments, or seizing your assets, call now and see if you can pay the IRS less.
888-789-5043. 888-789-5043. 888-789-5043. 888-789-5043.
This is Patriot Come Lately Talk Radio, keeping the spirit of America alive, a proud member of the Red State Talk Radio Network. And welcome back to the second half of the show. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately. I want to say hi to Rex, another regular listener who arrived a little late. Rex is one of my favorite authors and apparently had a book signing today, so I hope that went well for you, Rex. Congratulations. We have two topics left for the rest of the evening that I do want to squeeze in. I'm going to start off, first of all, with the Supreme Court decisions. Now, there's been a lot in the news about these decisions, so I don't want to overanalyze them, but I do have a couple of thoughts of my own, and with my sort of non-legal mind, but I think common sense, to say, well, why don't these things come up in the discussions? You may remember a couple of years ago, Roberts did the first sort of reinterpretation of the law when he changed the Obamacare fines from being a penalty to a tax, which then would allow it to still exist, because if it had been a penalty, it was unconstitutional. And as part of what he said that he actually used the words, let me see if I have them here. No. He said that, but basically he said that it wasn't for the Supreme Court to change the law, to to decide what the law was. That was for the Congress to actually set up what the law should be. Well, of course, what happened now is when something that was clearly put into the law and very clearly stated, I mentioned this last week, the discussion about having the subsidies, the federal subsidies, was only described in the section of the law, section 1311, that talked about the state exchanges. The federal exchanges were described in section 1321, and there was no reference in the law there to any kind of federal subsidies for people who were using the federal exchanges. Now, that was done deliberately. Many commentators mentioned it, and most recently videos have surfaced where that egregious person, Gruber, right, the one who called all Americans stupid, also confirms that they deliberately put that in there because they felt that by doing that they would force the governors of the states to take and set up state exchanges so their state citizens could get the subsidies. Well, of course, a large number did not, and so then Obamacare started paying out the subsidies anyway, and that's why they had this court case. And so what did Roberts do? He reinterpreted the law. And he wrote, Congress passed the Affordable Care Act to improve health insurance markets, not to destroy them. If at all possible, we must interpret the act in a way that is consistent with the former and avoids the latter. So what that indicates for Roberts, it doesn't matter what you write in the law. If you write the law wrongly, that doesn't matter. The Supreme Court justices will divine what you actually meant and will interpret the law accordingly. Well, the founders are spinning in their graves at that. And there are those who say the six that voted along, or the other five plus Roberts, that voted for this particular decision could be impeached because it is so obviously against, it's so unconstitutional. There are a couple of them, though, that have even more reason to be impeached, a couple of the justices. Most specifically, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but also Elena Sotomayor, because both of them have participated, officiated at gay weddings. And by officiating at gay weddings, they have indicated in advance their support thereof. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg actually used one occasion when she was officiating the marriage of two men to cite her constitutional right to do so. This was before the announcement of the decision by the Supreme Court. So in advance, she was indicating that she'd already made up her mind, which is totally against the regulations that have been set up for judicial conduct. And so she's very definitely impeachable, even if the others like Roberts, but I think even Roberts is, because he is so obviously strayed from the law. And there was, it's never been the case that the Supreme Court was supposed to interpret the law. The only time, and again, I'm not a lawyer, but the only time I say that you might think that common sense would say that there is a logical reason why they may have to do some interpretation if there is no clarity in the law. If something is written such a way that it could be A or B, you go to the Supreme Court and say, okay, which should it be? And even then, I think in many cases what they should do, they should send it back to Congress and say, rewrite the law. In this case, they didn't do that. It was very clear that it was A and not B, and yet they said, well, it doesn't matter that it was written as A, but because really the whole thing was supposed to be B, we're going to let you interpret it that way, and that's why the suit was struck down. I mean, just talk about judicial activism. It is definitely that. Now, Alan West posted on his site, remember Alan West? Yep. The guy that got shafted by the GOP. I do not like the GOP, but my regular listeners will know that. Alan West said, okay, folks, the other big decision, the one about gay marriage, is here. It's been taken, whether we like it or not. Now, that's one where I sort of say, it doesn't impact me. I'm happy with my wife. I have a heterosexual marriage. But if gay people want to get married, that's fine. Where I do have a problem with the decision is that I think what the court didn't do, but obviously we've seen the courts becoming very left-wing, even though we thought we had conservative judges there, but they're being very left-wing. They did not put in protection for the First Amendment. So which one trumps which? Because, yes, we know the next step is because, and this is not all gays, but there are those, the militant, extreme gays, just like the militant, extreme Islamists, who want to bring down religion and maybe not, they don't seem to rail against it in the same, against Islam in the same way that they do against Christianity and to a certain extent Judaism. But there was no protection for the First Amendment, in other words, for things like churches, in the ruling that the Supreme Court made. I think it would have been a very good compromise, but we don't seem to be able to compromise today, if the Supreme Court had said, okay, folks, we understand that there are people who religiously do not agree with gay marriage, but the 14th Amendment says everybody should be treated equally. That's fine. However, government should get out of the business of marriage, and therefore churches have a First Amendment right to marry people or not as they choose, because we all know the next step's going to be that churches are going to be sued, and basically the intention is to somehow undermine them, probably by forcing the government, or giving the government an excuse, especially this regime, to take away their tax-exempt status. Now, again, discussion, should they, shouldn't they have it, but it's something that churches have had for the duration of the life of this country. Does it need to change now? Okay, that's a whole other discussion. But that would have been a very nice compromise. The gays would have got their ability to have contracts and civil unions, and the churches would have been free to marry those that they feel their religious tenets allow them to marry. And instead now we're going to have just as much contentious issues coming up. I think it's going to be very difficult. However, there is one positive thing that Alan West said. Well, basically, the way the due process clause was introduced into the ruling of this case, it means that basically my concealed carry permit is going to be valid in all 50 states, because you look at the wording of the ruling, it says, if you are doing something legal in this state, it has to be recognized by the other. So why would that not apply to a concealed weapon license. So that's going to be an interesting thing. Also here, what might happen with the first court case. That could be a very interesting thing that would happen. Anyway, folks, like I said, time flies when you're having fun, so it's time for another commercial. Just a reminder, remember, if you need the services, please use the 800 numbers.
If you're diabetic, this message could change your life. Is your blood sugar out of control even when you do all the right stuff? Are you afraid of diabetic blindness and the risk of amputation, as well as all those other side effects? Well, you should be. Is there anything that could help manage your blood sugar? Nobetes is a natural supplement that may quickly and dramatically lower your blood sugar.
My name is Bob Corder. I've been using Nobetes for about 3.5 to 4 months now. And in the first 3 months, I've actually lowered my blood sugars from 500s down to 139, and then it dropped to 88 to 93.
My name is Kirsten. I'm a type 1 diabetic, and while taking Nobetes, my blood sugar levels dropped from 295 to 115 in just 1 day.
The FDA hasn't evaluated these statements, and Nobetes isn't intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. But for many, it's helped drop their blood sugar. So if you've been evaluated with high blood sugar, don't delay. Evaluate Nobetes now. Call 800-424-3790 and get 2 bottles free. Just cover shipping and handling. Call 800-424-3790. That's 800-424-3790.
The offer of a franchise can only be made through delivery of a franchise disclosure document. Imagine yourself being a leader in America's fastest growing demographic category. More than 10,000 people a day turn 65, and a large percentage are going to need a helping hand at home or in choosing the right assisted living community. Always Best Care is looking for people who've excelled at everything they've done, but they're seeking a new challenge. Always Best Care is one of the fastest growing companies in this explosive field. We're looking for 25 new franchisees to keep our booming business growing. We'll back you up with the strongest award-winning marketing program in the industry, and we'll provide the special training and support that's fueled our growth to prepare you for this great opportunity. All that's missing is you. Call Always Best Care toll-free at 1-800-643-7508. That's 1-800-643-7508. For Always Best Care, 1-800-643-7508. Call today.
This is Patriot Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patriotcomelately.us. And we're into the last segment of the show. I haven't handled half of the SCOTUS stuff that I would have liked to, because I think the Supreme Court is becoming just as corrupt as the rest of the Washington elite. But I also promised to finish off the TPP, TPA, TAA, that whole Obama trade thing. Now, of course, the last couple of shows have been talking about it, and at the time it hadn't been decided. So finally, the GOP managed to ramrod it through in a manner that I have to say, after being unable to seem to get anything through Congress, even when they had the majority, now all of a sudden they were able to do it, even though the Democrats were heftily against them. Why all of a sudden were they able to do it with this one? Well, I'll tell you in a moment. But very quickly, first of all, one of the other things I'd hoped to get to, and I just want to quickly run through the list, is a list that Bernie Sanders put out, why the TPP would be bad for working people. Now, Bernie Sanders is running for president now, but we know he's a socialist. But strangely enough, I have respect for him. He is one of the few politicians that is open, honest, stands up for what he believes in. Now, I don't agree with him, but I have a lot more respect for him, actually, than I do for the GOP establishment, because they speak the white man with red face and tears in his eyes speaks many times with forked tongue. Anyway, quickly on to what Bernie Sanders said. 10 ways that TPP would hurt working families. It would allow corporations to outsource even more jobs overseas, because it's kind of a super NAFTA, and we saw that many jobs left America because of NAFTA. U.S. sovereignty would be undermined by giving corporations the right to challenge our laws, and I talked about that, and it wouldn't be in our courts, but it would be in international tribunals. Wages, benefits, collective bargaining would be threatened. NAFTA has shown that as well, that even though, because jobs are exported, but in addition, wages go down here in the US. Our ability to protect the environment would be undermined because, and I have talked about this before, where if companies can sue if we say we're going to stop using something that they produce because now they're going to lose profits. That's part of TPP. Food safety standards would be threatened. Same thing. So somewhere like Vietnam, which is part of TPP, China's not part yet, and we know all the stories about the dog food and tainted milk, etc. Well, if Vietnam does that, basically we've got to let it in because that's part of TPP. There's no check on that. Buy America laws could end. Lots of cities, lot of counties, lot of states have Buy America laws that make their organizations, public organizations, buy American goods. Can't do that. That's against the TPP. Prescription drug prices could increase. Wall Street would benefit at the expense of everyone else. The TPP would reward authoritarian regimes, and the TPP has no expiration date, making it virtually impossible to repeal. Now, I want to go back to number 8. Wall Street would benefit. And so here's something that really will make you sick. I'm going to squeeze in the last few minutes here. So there was a lot of money flowing in Washington in order to get the TPP, TPA bills passed. According to research, and this appeared in something called the Op-Ed News, $200 million was available to help pass the fast track, which would lead to TPP. $200 million. So eventually TPA finally passed with a 219 to 211 vote. Only 218 were needed to pass, so one vote more. Now, let's see the amount of money each representative was going to get for a yes vote. Like I said, almost 200 million went. The biggest recipient was John Boehner, who received $5.3 million for the yay note. Kevin McCarthy, $2.4 million. Paul Ryan, $2.4 million. Pat Tiberi, $1.6 million. These are all Republicans. Steny Hoyer was offered $1.6 million for a yes vote, and only $280,000 for a no vote, and he voted no. He's a Democrat. This is bizarro world, don't you think? And then we have a bunch of Democrats who were offered millions of dollars and pennies, and in some cases zero, for a nay vote, and they all voted nay. They are heroes. I think there were a few, and there were a few Republicans. Mick Mulvaney, Andy Harris, Thomas Massey, Dana Rohrabacher. They all were offered money, small amounts, $500,000, $250,000, and they voted no and didn't get any money at all. So where did all this money come from? It came from security brokers, investment companies, Wall Street, big banking companies. That's where all that money came from. Folks, if you're getting money to vote, is that not corruption? We should fire all of them. Okay, folks, I see it is time to go. I want to thank you for coming. More next week. We'll see what's happened in the world of politics next week. TTFN. Come back next week, and don't forget, please tell your friends. Thank you for listening to the show. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's topics. Whether you listened live, to a recording, or to a rebroadcast, I appreciate the time you share with me. We need to spread the message of liberty far and wide, so please tell your friends and family about the show. Thank you for helping to keep the beacon of hope burning. This is Stefan, your Patriot Come Lately, signing off. God bless America, and remember, L3, long live liberty.